All right, welcome everybody to the Revisions and Revisions Additional Scope Workshop. As we get started today, I would like to introduce you to the presenters. Myself, I'm Shannon McEwen, Manager of Building Permits. We have Mary Audrey, she's the Assistant Manager in Plans Exam, and she manages the Commercial, Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing Examiners and the Residential Building Plans Examiners. We also have Carla Palma. She is our associate engineer and she specializes in the engineering plan review work group. And we have Emily Bernard. She's our supervising building permit specialist and she supervises the permit issuance work group. Also with us is Ava and Selena. They're our part-time management assistants and they help us with putting on this presentation today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Revisions versus revisions additional scope of work. What's the difference, right? So revisions are submitted after the issuance of a building permit and they are submitted when you need to make a change to the original scope of work. Maybe change to a window type, wall type, various type of changes that could apply to the scope of your building permit. Then we have revisions additional scope of work. They're also submitted after the issuance of a building permit, but with that you can include some small additions to the original scope of work. And that could include increasing the square footage, height, or valuation. But just to note, revisions cannot change the original scope of work of the permit, and they can also not include any type of detached structure that would be under a separate permit or elements that would be located outside of the scope or the footprint of the building, such as a grease interceptor, a trash enclosure, maybe a gas line that extends past the footprint of the home for a future fire pit, or whatever you have going on. So to explain a little bit on revisions additional scope of work, the hows and the whys, just so you understand why we say some permits cannot have additional scope of work and some permits can. Basically, our permitting software, the way it's designed is it's going to take the square footage of the original permit that was issued and any revisions that are submitted after that are marked additional scope of work, yes, and say they have additional square footage. It's going to take all those additional square footages for however many revisions additional scope of work you may have, and it's going to add it to the square footage of your original permit, and that is what is going to be shown upon your final inspection when you receive a certificate of occupancy or a certificate of completion. So it works in a simple form in that way. So some of the things that we can do with revisions additional scope of work would be some examples we have listed here on the slides. Maybe you have a patio permit and you're going to make it larger. It was a 10 by 20 and now it's going to be 12 by 20 or whatever you're doing to increase that. If you are increasing that size of the patio cover, then we're going to flag that revision to be reprinted so that, you know, in the print of the permit, if there's something that, you know, shows that that patio permit increased, now we'll reprint the permit so it clarifies that change. It can also include small increases to the square footage of a building. Maybe you have a single family residence and after you got the permit pulled, the owner decides that they just want their master bedroom to be a little larger. So you're going to add 300 square foot onto the home. That in that case, we can do a revision additional scope of work. You could also increase the height of a building through a revision additional scope of work, but we cannot increase stories. So if you have a single story home, through a revision additional scope of work, you cannot make it a 2-story home. But you could increase the height if, say, you have to increase your ceiling height. Maybe you need to do that for fire sprinkler requirements, or the owner just would like a higher ceiling height. Maybe sometimes there's some kind of architectural element, you know, in the roof that like a dorm window or something of the sort where you have an increase there. We can accommodate that. We can also accommodate adding valuations. So maybe you're moving some interior walls, you're changing an occupancy type, and you're doing some interior remodel enhancements that are adding on to the value of the original permit. That can be accommodated. Or even if you have some additional mechanical or electrical or plumbing to the building permit with sub permits, or if it's a standalone, say you have a building and it had 5 roof mounted AC units, but you're going to add 2 more, we can accommodate that through a revision additional scope as well. Some of the things that we can, or permit types that we cannot do a revision additional scope of work on, would be pools, signs, fences, grading, solar, and standard plans, anything that has that 43 standard plan number. Our system is not designed to accommodate revisions additional scope of work on those types of permits. And it has a lot to do with how the information is put into our software. So for instance, with pools, we have a decking square footage and we have a water surface square footage area, and it's put into a table. And it's just not designed to do an increase on that. And if you have pool permits, you'll see on your permit when it prints that it has that broken out like in a table form on your permit. Same thing with signs and fences. Because they're done through like this tabling in our software, we just can't accommodate it. Grading, it just gets to be too complicated. There could be some special circumstances that we could accommodate it, but in most cases, it doesn't work. Same with adding kilowatts or a lot more panels onto your solar permit. Standard plans, they are just as what they are called, standard. That's where like we have tract homes or maybe condo buildings where you have a building type 1 and you're going to build it 20 times. So we will approve it under a 43 number, and then we kind of copy that number every time you build it. We can't add square footage to a remodel repair permit type because remodel repair permit type isn't set up as an addition permit type and shouldn't be adding square footage to begin with. Can't increase stories to the home, the stuff that's listed here. Just a little disclaimer note, all projects are unique. So if the circumstance isn't listed here, we can't, list every type of circumstance that comes up with your particular and special project. Just reach out to us and inquire before you submit if you want to avoid that correction letter or saying, sorry, can't do it as a revision, or a revision is additional scope, you need a supplemental permit. Just go ahead and reach out to our customer service team, and their email address is listed here on the slide. It's packenter@clarkcountynv.gov. And they can also be reached at 455-8972. So you're going to submit your revision. To apply for a revision, you're going to go through our Citizens Access portal, and you will search your permit number. And upon the search of your permit number, you're going to select Create Amendment. There's 2 different ways that it can show up in the Citizens Access portal. One, if you actually search your record permit and you pull up the record, you'll go under record info, and as you see there on the screen, under record info, you scroll down a little bit, and under more details there, it says create amendment. You will select that. If you're logged into the Citizens Access portal and you just go to building and search, you'll see a list of all of the different permit types that you have in process. So there on the second side of the screen, you'll see a listing. You can also submit a revision that way. Off to the right, you will see there the amendment button. It's going to be on a status of permit issued. If you see an amendment button on a different status, it could be that's how you add an additional contact, but not actually see a revision. So once you click that amendment button, it's going to ask you some questions. You're going to go through the screens, but to highlight here for you some of the particular screens for revisions is you'll enter in a description at the top, and then you have to select which review workflows are applicable to your revisions. And to make sure that none are skipped, we have programmed to where you have to actually say yes or no. So you have to go through and say no on anything that doesn't apply. But you want to make sure that you do accurately select the review that is required. Because if the review is skipped, say you didn't select zoning and they were a required review of this change, then the revision, if it gets approved, zoning hasn't approved it, you might have to submit another revision to gain their approval. So just make sure you're making those appropriate selections. I'd say to be safe, if you're unsure, select all of the workflows that were included in your original permit. And if somebody takes a look at it and they are not a required review, they can just enter into their status review not required. You can also give us a call at our customer service desk and we can get you to somebody that can help you as well. And then on this section that you're filling out in the Citizens Access Portal, it's also going to ask you if this revision is adding any square foot, height, area, or valuation. And if you say yes on that, you have to select the box additional scope acknowledgement. And that is what is going to make you in our system show up as a revision additional scope of work. So in those fields below, describe if you have an added height or you have additional square footage, or if you have that additional valuation. Just because you're not doing square footage or height, you may be adding something that has increased the valuation that you gave to us upon the original permit. So next slide. Also, to be careful, make sure that when you're submitting your revision that you upload an hourly plan review application form. There's links to this application form on our website that you will fill out, and you will upload it along with any other documents and plans that you have when you're submitting your revision. Please be sure to add the valuation down there in the bottom right-hand box where it says additional scope permit fees. Make sure you list what that additional valuation is going to be, and then a good description of what your scope of this revision is going to be on that form. But that form is something that we are going to request. If it is missed upon the application of the revision, you could either get an email for it or the plans examiner could send a correction request for it. So a couple of types of revisions that are a little unique, just wanted to bring up, would be if you have a revision that is for an RFI, an NCR, a deferred submittal. A lot of times with deferred submittal, some customers get confused that they're not sure how to provide that deferred submittal to us. Those are all done through revision, not revision additional scope of work, but just a basic revision. We have seen some customers where if they're submitting a deferred submittal revision for trust calcs, they say revision additional scope of work, yes. That's going to throw you into a different category. You're not really adding scope of work because that was something that was listed on your original approved plans as a deferred item. It could be stairs, truss calcs, some of those items that we classify as deferred submittal. The RFIs, request for information, and NCRs that are requested through our inspection teams also get submitted as revisions. It's just something that they need more information on, or they need corrected because they see it out in the field when they're doing the inspections. And that you're going to submit in as a revision. When you're submitting in for those types of revisions, there's some little examples here. If it's an RFI, in the revision description, say RFI and the number of RFI and a short description of what that is. Same thing with an NCR. Usually with an NCR, there isn't a number, but it looks like in this little example here, the customer probably listed the sheet that they were supplying, a structural sheet there for their Nelson studs. And then deferred submittal, indicate in the description that it's a deferred submittal, and whether it's truss or stairs or whatever that deferred item is. Another unique type of revision that we have are for our alternate materials and methods requests. Sometimes alternate materials and method requests are submitted with the application of a building permit, and they're reviewed with it. And in that time, once the permit is issued, it will get issued with a -A. Usually, since it's getting issued with the permit, it's -A001. Unless you have a couple different materials and methods, maybe you'll have a 2. But usually I've just seen them as a A001. If the permit's already been issued and you're submitting in for an alternate material method request after the issuance of a building permit, then it's going to go through the standard revision process and it's going to get that -R001 or 4 or 5 or whatever revision number that you are on. So a couple just quick keynotes and tips. Looks like I have a spelling error there. I'll have to fix next presentation. It's critical to select all the appropriate workflows as yes or no. When in doubt, select all the reviews that were done on the original permit. If the revision additional scope of work is too large, if you're redesigning the entire building or a major portion of it, so you're really no longer building that building, then in that case scenario, we might be asking you for a replacement permit. So if you have a really large redesign type of revision, I would suggest do a pre-submittal meeting with us ahead of submitting with that revision. Just reach out to us and we'd be happy to schedule up a quick conversation or meeting with you. Revisions that are in review and are not yet approved or issued will stop inspections from being scheduled. So be mindful of that. I see this come up quite often with our standard plans because the standard plans, those 43 numbers for tract homes or condos or apartments, townhomes, are affecting multiple buildings being built. If a revision gets submitted into that, then it will prevent you from scheduling the next inspection. So just be careful on your timing on that. If you have questions on that part and you already have these buildings or homes being built, communicate with your inspector on those revisions and he can help you with the timing to make sure it doesn't prevent an inspection that you need, say, the next day. Reduced square footages are usually a supplemental permit. Our system really doesn't, it can add square footage, but it doesn't subtract. There are some case scenarios where we wouldn't have a supplemental permit. So just best to ask us before you submit and we can guide you in the right way. And with that, we're going to go over plans, building plans exam, and I'm going to turn it over to Mary. Mary, are you muted maybe? We're not hearing you.
Hi. So with plans exam, when we have changes to plans, we have to have a narrative that describes the changes to the plans. We need the page number where the changes are occurring. We need clouds and changes on the plans. So cloud the changes on the plans so we can find it. What happens sometimes with really big plans that are very busy, if we don't get it clouded, we can't see it. And it just helps us do our review better. Talking about adding or reducing square footage should be listed in the scope of the revision, which we went over with. Let's see. We need to detail what is changing in the narrative. We need it detailed and include the square foot for each area. Okay, you already provide the hourly application. We need a new cover sheet with the new square footage changes and scope statement. So basically, we need a new cover sheet describing the changes. And let's see. All revisions shall be identified with a delta symbol and clouded on the drawings or resubmitted as a new project. Revisions completed the same day shall have the same delta symbol, letter, or number. It is the responsibility of the principal design professional to notify the building official, permit applicant, and the prime agency of all changes throughout the project and provide revised construction documents prior to the commencement of the work. We would like to approve your plans on revisions. We just need Really, the downfall comes into not giving us enough information on the narrative, or not having it all in there. So we want to have definitely the page numbers, the clouds. That just helps us get through it, because we've already seen these plans and they're usually small changes, and we just want to go through it and look at it. And that would be for all the disciplines, not just architectural. It's got to be mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, whatever you have coming in. That's, I think, pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Mary. One other thing to note too, just when you're submitting in revisions, only submit the sheets that are being revised. Please don't submit to us a whole entire new plan set, right, Mary?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Now we'll move on to structural plan review, and I will turn over to Carla.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carla Palma. I'm with the engineering team. The engineering team oversees the structural and geotechnical and ATS plan review, and structural and geotechnical and ATS inspections. So I've been on all over my team for the last 10 years, and that's what I'm here today and explaining you a little bit of the befores and afters plan review, the stages, and how that can affect the inspections while we are on the field. So there's two big stages or phases for permit issuance that we as plan reviewers see. You have the before the permit is issued, where we have the in review status, which is the stage at where we are reviewing your plans. And then you have the after, that the permit has been issued. One of the things I learned from Scott, or assistant director, when I first started working here is, if we are going to make any changes, my biggest suggestion to the customer is always do it before the permit is issued. As Shannon and Mary were explaining earlier, of course, if you're going to change completely the initial scope of the work, another permit or a different permit may be required. But if there are going to be minor changes, like a set of stairs or not, or a second story or not, that type of things, that will be something you want to address before the permit is issued. So while the permit is in review status, we as design professionals, we are going to be issuing comments. So, and I'm going to say this in behalf of our team, it's gratifying to us to stamp and to approve a document after review. However, we keep in mind that our main service to the community is to ensure life safety by verifying project minimum code compliance. It's extremely easy for us to review a set of plans and stamp it. Issuing corrections takes a lot of time. And we have to put a code section, we have to address the item to you. That's something we truly do not enjoy. So ideally for us, all projects are approvable. That will be a great day. However, if at any time your design professional has any questions about the comment we have issued, please, they can contact us at any time, either through email, by phone, or by text. Some of our plan reviewers have cell phones as well, including myself. A scope correction, as I said, before the permit is issued, is the right time for you to add minor additions or minor removals. I've been getting a lot of phone calls lately about, hey, I upload this addendum to this geotechnical report a couple of weeks ago. What's going on? Why I haven't heard anything? And then when I go to the Citizen Access Portal, which is the same system you guys use for uploading documents, I see that we're still waiting for customer. Not because you have gone through the Citizen Access Portal and upload a document, that means that that has gone through the system. If you upload corrections to or comments, you should always see that status changing from waiting for customer to in review. You should always see the change. If you don't see the change, if you have upload anything and you don't see the change, please contact us immediately, because either it was uploaded incorrectly or was uploaded on the incorrect place. possible changes due to scope revision. So some of the things that I like to see on the plans is, for instance, an steel tenant improvement. Maybe I have a note there for approved fabricator, but then you change something on your design where you're no longer going to use steel. You're going to do everything in concrete, but I still have that note on the plan. So that's one of the things that you may see, and it's no longer applicable after you make a correction to the scope. So you may want to contact the plan reviewer to remove that note. Inspections, let's say everything on your plan says 4,500 PSI for the concrete, and your engineer kindly redesign everything to 2,500. So you no longer have concrete inspections, but we still put that inspection on the third party tab. So just make sure that all of the inspections that because of your change of scope has corrected now are no longer in the system, or you will still have to issue or get a QA agreement after before your permit is issued. Deferred submittals. The main set of deferred submittals that we have are stairs, awnings, and trusses, right? So let's go back 1 second. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I thought you were on the next slide.
That's fine.
Apologies.
The main set of the first meals that we have are awnings, stairs, and trusses, and there are conditions that need to be met. If for some reason you're no longer going to have trusses, you're going to have a flat roof or something where you're no longer going to require stairs, and those conditions are still there because of the correction of your scope, you're still going to carry those conditions. So just make sure you, if you have that type of changes, you speak to your plan reviewer to make sure all of those conditions have been removed. Next, please. So what is a revision? So we are after the permit has been issued. For sure, you can change anything anymore. Now, for sure, you need a revision, but all of the listings that Shano explained earlier. So now we are going to update or change something within the set of approved documents. So what can those changes be? Field details. For instance, I'm showing you here on the top, one of the top pictures, how they increase the size of a footing. That will be a change in the field. That is a revision. And RFI, like some information was missing from the plans, the contractor needs to send an RFI to the engineer. That is a revision. A non-compliance report, these are very common reports that our third-party agencies issue in the field, and those will come to us with a resolution from the engineer as well as a revision. Revised plans, any type of changes that you're going to have in the field or, while construction is taking place, that will come to us as a revision. Work plans, third-party agency inspections, concrete, steel, masonry were assigned. However, the contractor never called the third-party agency. They lost a number. They were too busy to come. Contractor kept working. We need to contact the structural and or geotechnical engineer and issue a work plan. You may have a geotechnical or a structural work plan, but that needs to come to us as a QA retrofit and a revision. The first submittals, as I was mentioning earlier, trusses, stair, awnings. So some of those documents that I mentioned are shown in this slide. However, if at any time you don't know how to submit a document your agency or your technical or your structural engineer gave you, you don't know what it is, please email us at dsengineer@clarkcountynb.gov. I used to manage these mailbox for years. The wildest things that you can imagine came that way. And 99% of the time, we were able to reply the emails within minutes of arriving. So please, if you don't know how to submit it, instead of being waiting and hoping what you submitted was correct or hoping you submitted it correctly, just email us. It's as easy as that. We like to get to those emails right away. Next slide, please. So what is not a revision? Concrete mix designs. That's the number one document everybody submit as a revision, and it's not. QA reports, either a final grading or a structural final report, those are not revisions. Structural observations and geotechnical observations report. One more time, I'm giving you some examples or the documents that you may or not seen in the field or that your designers send your way. If at any time you are in doubt, please email us directly. We are the ones that review all of these documents, and the geotechnical, the ATS, and the structural team share this mailbox, and we can reply to your email right away and let you know how to submit it with instructions and the type of document that you need to choose. Next, please. Okay, so now we have defined that we have a revision. Now it's time to submit it. The DS engineer told you, yep, you need to submit that as an structural or geotechnical addendum, or something changes that it needs to be submitted as a revision. Okay, great. Then what do we expect to see on that revision? A narrative, as Mary and Shannon were saying. It will really help us a lot to know on a letter what exactly are you changing. One of the main reasons we not lately, but we always disapprove documents is because they don't have the electronic signature and the digital signature and the electronic stamp per the Nevada Board of Engineers. The Nevada Board of Engineers issue on 2020, I believe, a guide on how engineers should be stamping and signing electronically all their designs. So it's not us trying to stop your project or trying to not allowing you to build. It's a requirement of the state of Nevada. And that's the reason why we enforce this NRS. So please, and all your engineers, all your licensed engineers and design professionals are aware of these guidelines. If for some reason you have any questions yourself on how these signatures look or how they should look, go to the link that is listed on the slide. And it's a PDF document that is going to show you examples of how to sign, how to stamp, and how not to do it. For the first submittals, we have defined those come as revisions as well. Usually, those documents are going to be issued by the engineer. However, we have had cases where sometimes shop drawings have been submitted in lieu of an engineering design. And if that's the case, that's fine. We just will require that your engineer has the review stamp on it. It's not an engineer stamp necessarily, but it's an engineer review stamp. The square one in red, I believe most of them have. Revised structural plans. If you're going to be modifying your plans, that's great. But as Mary and Shannon mentioned, don't give us, please, the full set of plans all over again. I do not know how the amount of hours we charge per review translate to your fees. I do know that we charge $110 or $90 per hour of review. Instead of spending another 2 hours looking through your whole building and trying to find out what did you change, it will really attenuate the amount of time that we spend on the review, and the faster you will get it if you were to cloud it, especially if you do it in another color, for us to see what did you change. Sometimes you change something very minimum, and it will be for us very easy to see it if you were to cloud it or mark it. Revise structural calculations. So whenever the size of a footing, the size of a sheet wall, a hole through a sheet wall, or any type of change on your plans or your recommendations on a geotechnical report were to change, those need to be, except for the geotechnical, all those structural need to be backed up by a set of revised structural calculations. The dimensions of the sheet wall have changed, the openings, the finite element, assumption that initially an engineer had for the design of the sheet wall now has completely changed and has to be taken into consideration for redesign. So I do understand some engineers sometimes send us a letter saying, hey, everything is fine because I said so, and stamp it and throw it to the building department. Unfortunately, as much as we respect the engineering opinion, we will not accept those documents if there's not enough mathematical calculations justifying that opinion. So that's something for you guys to keep in mind when your engineer gives you a sheet saying, because I believe so, because of my professional experience. Unfortunately, it's very, very minimal the amount of cases where we actually accept a document like that. Please, the next slide. So can we get the other drawings, please? Yeah, perfect. So this is one of the reasons that we may not see your document even if you upload it semi-correctly. When you any type of calculation or letter from your engineer, field details, RFIs, NCRs, work plans, trust sisters owning, as we mentioned before, any of those should be uploaded whenever you choose that type of document as a structural calculations. That will show to us as an A4 size on our screen and will allow us to go page by page. Any type of drawing or engineering drawing shall be submitted as an structural plan. So those are the only two you should be using for us: structural calculations, structural plans. The other one you're going to be using for our geotechnical team is going to be soils report. That's it. I believe for civil plans there is another option, but specifically for geotechnical or addendums or update letters, just use the option soils report, which is the one that is 1, 2, 3 options above the structural calculations. Those are the only ones you should be using. That's it. Please do not use the option documents. If you were to use the option documents, it will go to a place where we will not be able to see it. I don't know why we have it there. I believe IT is working on removing it, but until that happens, please, if in doubt, use anything but documents. And one more time, a reminder, if in doubt, one more time, email the S engineer. We will address your questions. Next.
And that's it for engineering. Thank you, Carla. So next we're going to talk a little bit about it's a quasi revision, change of contractors. It uses the revision process a little bit, and I'm going to turn it over to Emily so she can go over that with you.
Thank you, Shannon. So in the case, like Shannon was saying, it's if the original architectural, electrical, plumbing, or mechanical plans were not designed by a licensed design professional, a revision may be necessary when changing contractors or submitting for a change of contractor. In this case, the customer would submit revised plans through the revision submittal process, and the revision should be titled Change of Contractor to clearly indicate the nature of the update. Yeah, we asked for that specifically so it doesn't get lost in the revisions. When you do that, you just mark change of contractor, and then you would make the selections in the area below, whether it's architectural, whether it's plumbing, whether it's mechanical, electrical. It might be all of them, it might only be one of them. So the selections just vary depending on the needs of the customer and the plans that you're trying to revise. Next. And then we go into the fee workup. Once all the departments have reviewed and approved the revisions, the process moves to the next stage. The permit issue team verifies that all the workflows have been completed by all the areas and departments and that the required hourly plan review fees have been calculated correctly. Keep in mind, fees for revisions with additional scope of work are calculated using both the hourly plan review fee and permit fees based on the increased valuation that Shannon was talking about earlier. When you select that box and you check additional scope of work and you put a $10,000 valuation, you will be charged additional fees, for example, based on that increased valuation. The revision is placed in the e-revision ready for payment status in the system. An automated email is sent to the revision contact informing them of the fee amount due. The contact can then pay the fee via their portal account. After the payment is processed, the status of the revision changes to revision approved, and the system will email a receipt to the customer, and the plans are made accessible for viewing and printing through the contacts portal. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Also, just a key thing in there, how she says that it needs to be the revision contact. In order to be able to pay fees on a permit or a revision, you need to be a contact on that revision, not just a contact on the original permit. Correct, Emily?
Yes, that is correct. It's real important that it's normally whoever submits it has been granted access, whether they're the general contractor. If the general contractor, once the permit has been issued, they might give access back to their engineer or design professional or somebody else. But whoever submits that revision is the only person or persons because that have access to it and can pay for it. Sometimes whoever originally submitted the revision might give access to somebody else because they can do that as well through their portal.
Yes, thank you.
You're
And on revisions, you don't have to be the licensed contractor. That's just for permits that we issue.
Correct.
Thank you, Em.
You're welcome.
So with that, I'm just gonna give a little disclaimer here, and the disclaimer is that all of the information that we presented to you today is correct at this time. It is subject to change, really just in case we improve a process. We're always trying to improve things, make it a little bit easier for you to get through the portal. So maybe some of these screenshots will have an enhancement in our portal. We're always trying to make it better. So always good to check out our website to see, the most update and graded information. This is our first workshop that we've done on revisions and revision additional scope of work, but it's likely months down the road or possibly next year we'll do another one just for anybody who wasn't able to attend this one or any new employees that you may have. These workshops are listed on our website. We do them monthly, so check out our website and see when our next workshop is going to be. There's a list in this presentation of all the different links to our websites, and you can also ask for a PDF copy of this presentation from our customer service team. And we also have a YouTube channel where the recordings are going to be on that YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch them there as well. The only extra bonus you get really attending the live workshop is now we're going to stop the recording and we are all going to turn on our videos. Customers don't have to if you don't want to. And we're going to open it up for questions and answers.